Hello students, welcome back to Accounting 2402, Principles of Managerial Accounting. This is a continuation of Chapter 25 lecture dealing with differential analysis and product pricing. Okay, now this is the last exercise that I'm going to be going over, and we're continuing with different types of differential analysis that we're experiencing. Okay, so on the first problem that I went over, which was 25.1, we had a differential analysis for whether we were going to lease or sell. On the second one, we had a make or buy. Now, this is the last problem that I'm going to be going over, and this is whether we're going to determine, we have an existing piece of equipment. We have to determine whether we keep that old equipment or we replace it with a newer piece of equipment, okay? So all of these are business decisions that you have to make as the manager, as the owner, as the leader of your organization. You have to make the decision that is best for the company, okay? So in this case, we have a company is considering replacing an old piece of machinery. That piece of machinery originally cost you $400,000 and has an accumulated depreciation year to date of $175,000. With a new machine that has a purchase price of $550,000. Okay, so we want to replace the machinery that cost us $400,000 with a new machinery that we're going to pay $550,000 for. Okay, the old machinery can be sold for $250,000. Okay, so the annual variable production cost associated with the old machine is estimated to be $72,500 per year for 8 years. Okay, the annual variable production cost for the new machine is estimated to be $24,000 per year for 8 years. So regardless which of the two options we get, we're going to have some annual costs associated with it. Okay, if we keep the old machine, we're going to have annual production costs of $72,500 for the next 8 years. If we buy a new piece of equipment, we're going to have a cost of $24,000 per year for the next 8 years. Okay, so we have to compare what is the best option. Do we keep the old machinery or do we buy a new one? Okay, so it says here, prepare a differential analysis dated May the 29th to determine whether to continue with alternative 1, which is to keep the old piece of machinery, or replace the machinery. Okay, those are the two options that we have. Okay, so we're going to start off with our revenues. Okay, so if I were to sell the old piece of machinery, I would have some proceeds from the sale. Okay, let me wrap text that. Okay, so if you were to go with the option of selling the old equipment, you are going to receive, according to the problem, the old machine could be sold for $250,000. Okay, so you're going to get a check for $250,000. That would be your proceeds. Okay, why? Because you're getting a check for $250,000. Okay, let me get rid of the commas. There we go. Okay, if you replace the old machine, that means that you're gonna sell it, so you're gonna get $250,000 out of it. Okay, if you keep the old machine, then you're not gonna get any proceeds because you're gonna keep it, right? So the difference would be alternative 2 minus alternative 1. Okay, so we have a difference of $250,000. So here we have to think, okay, if I get rid of my old piece of equipment and I'm going to get a check for $250,000, okay? If I keep it, well, I'm not going to get anything because I'm keeping it, right? Okay, what about our costs? Okay, now we have to analyze our cost. Well, if you buy a new machinery, you're going to have to pay the purchase price, right? Okay. If you buy a new piece of equipment, it says here that you're going to pay how much for the equipment? It says here you're going to purchase price of $550,000. Okay. So if you decide to buy a new equipment, you're going to spend $550,000. Okay. So if you replace the old machine, you're going to get a check for $250,000, and then you're going to have to pocket out $550,000. Okay, and it's in a minus sign because that is money that's leaving the company. You are going to have to pay out $550,000. Okay, If you continue with the old machine, well, then you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to pay for anything. You already have the machine, okay? So let's get the difference. Okay. So we've already identified that if we replace the old machine, we're going to be able to sell it for $250, and we're going to have to pay $550 for the new one, okay? We also have another component, which is my variable production costs, and that's for the next 8 years, okay? Okay, so now we have to locate the information for my estimated. For the old machine, your estimated cost is going to be $72,500 per year for the next 8 years. Okay, right there. Okay, so let's do some calculations down here. This is if you decide to continue with old machine. Okay, you're going to spend $72,500 for the next 8 years. Okay, and let's see how much that gives us. 72,500 times 8 years. That gives me $580,000. Okay, so if I keep my old machine, I'm going to spend in variable production costs $580,000. Now, because it is a cost, I'm going to put it in parentheses. Every time it's money that you're spending, it's a cost, you put it in parentheses. Okay. Now, what if I decide to replace the old machine? Well, we're also going to have some costs associated with that. Okay. It says that my cost per year is going to be $24,000. Okay. 24,000. So then we're going to have 24,000 times 8 years, and that's going to give us 24,000 times 8 years, $192,000. Okay. So if we decide to replace the old machine, we're going to be having variable production cost of $192,000 over the next 8 years. Wrong cell, negative 170.92. There we go. Okay, and we compare alternative 2 minus alternative 1. Okay, so now we can calculate my profit or loss. Okay, so I'm going to basically add everything in my columns to get my totals. Okay. And if you notice, I like using Excel. Why? Because that way I can just quickly run through my formulas, copy them, paste them. I don't have to be worrying about the calculator, making a mistake, or whatever the case might be. So if you're working out these problems for homework, I recommend you set them up like this in Excel. That way you can follow along with what I'm doing, and then it'll be really easy for you to complete your homework assignments and as well have for notes for when you take the test. Okay. It'll just be faster for you to do the calculations within the actual spreadsheet than having to use a calculator. Okay, so this is what we have. If we were to continue with the old machine, we're looking at spending $580,000 over the next 8 years. Okay, if we decide to replace the old machine with a newer machine, then we're looking at spending $492,000. That's a difference of $88,000. So here what we're looking at is which option is going to give me the less cost. Okay, so I'm going to have a loss regardless. Okay, but the one that's going to give me the lowest amount of loss is going to be your replace the old machine. Okay, that's a better option. I'll be losing or spending $492,000. Okay, so that is what's happening. You basically have to compare the first option with the second option and figure out what is the best option for your company. Okay, here we just have cost of $580. Here we had some revenue and some cost, and that is causing us to have a lower loss. Okay, so if I go with replacing the old machine with a new one, I'm going to save $88,000 over the next 8 years. Okay, now that is requirement A. Okay, now requirement B says, what is sunk what is the sunk cost in this situation? Okay, so we have to identify what is the sunk cost. Well, how can we identify something that we don't know? So I've included here the definition of sunk costs. These are costs that have been incurred in the past, cannot be recouped, and are not relevant to future decisions. So based on the information provided, what is a sunk cost? Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to look over the information. Okay, remember, it's a cost that has been incurred in the past, cannot be recouped, and is not relevant to future decisions. Okay. Well, when we look at the data, we can determine that the sunk cost is the 225,000 book value, which is the 400,000 cost less the 175,000 accumulated depreciation. Okay, of the present machine. Okay, the original cost and accumulated depreciation were incurred in the past and are irrelevant to the decision to replace the machine. Okay, so they're asking us to identify the cost that was occurred in the past, cannot be recouped, and is not relevant. Well, they tell you here that you bought this piece of equipment at 400,000 years ago, and it's depreciated 175,000. Okay, do we need those pieces of information to be able to do the calculations for our differential analysis? No, that's irrelevant information. I don't care how much you paid for it, years ago. I don't care the book value of it right now. That's not relevant to my calculation or to my analysis, so I can be able to determine whether I need to continue with the existing equipment or I need to replace the old machine. Okay, so that is what the information is. I forgot to notate here. They're asking you to what is it that you're going to do, whether you're going to continue or replace it, and the company should replace the old machine. And why are we doing this? If we look at the information, if we replace the old machine, we're going to be spending a lot less in our variable production cost versus if we continue with the old. The old machine is already outdated. It's not functioning up to par. So we're going to have a lot higher variable production cost than if we were to use option 2, which is to replace the old machine. Yeah, we're going to have to pay out some money up front, but we're going to be saving a lot of money in the long run in our cost. Okay, so that is how what we did for exercise 25-9. Okay, please, if while you're working your assignments you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. Please include the question number you're having issues with, your clear question or questions, and then I want to see your attempted solution so I can be able to provide guidance. Okay, if you're sending me an email through my STC email, please ensure that you include your name on the email and what class you're from. That way it becomes easier for me to know to what student to respond, in what class, so on and so forth. So please make sure that you include all of that information if you're emailing me through just to my STC email. Okay, so we've done 3 differential analysis. You will be tested on differential analysis, so make sure that you understand the process of being able to calculate whether we need to either take option 1 or take option 2. Okay, so make sure, once again, a reminder to read the chapter. If you have any questions, reach out to me. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye. Let me see.